Welcome to the Conscious Kinky Podcast, where we explore sexuality, connection, and power through awareness and intentional choice.
At the Kink Collective, we help people reframe their relationship with sexuality, build deeper connections, and become safe spaces in the world.
Each episode invites reflection, not performance.
And the conversation continues inside Conscious Conversations, our live community space. Welcome to the conversation.
Hi, welcome back to the Conscious Kinky Podcast, episode 1 of month 3.
Hard to believe we're at month 3 already.
I'm Joshua.
And I'm Kat. This podcast exists because most of us were taught what to do with our sexuality, but very few of us were taught how to understand it or communicate about it or relate to it in any way that builds safety and connection.
At the Kink Collective, our work is simple and intentional. We help people reframe their relationship with sexuality, build deeper and more meaningful connections, and become safe spaces in the world.
So each week we slow things down. We're going to explore sexuality, kink, and leather, not as identities to perform, but as information, reflections of how we relate to power, intimacy, boundaries, and choice.
Today's episode is the first conversation in month 3, and we're starting with a foundational question. How much of your relationship with sexuality is something you chose, and how much of it was conditioned? So, this episode will introduce 8 reflection questions. The first 4 will be about awareness, noticing what shaped us.
Then the second 4 are going to invite deeper reflection, introspection into how these early messages still live in our bodies and inform our choices today. You don't need to answer everything right now. Let this be a listening experience. Take what resonates and leave the rest. So let's begin.
Awesome. None of us come into sexuality neutral. We absorb messages long before we ever make a conscious decision through family, religion, media, definitely media, peers, trauma, and silence. Some of us were taught that sexuality was dangerous. Some of us were taught it was something to earn. Some were taught it was about power, and others it was about shame. And many of us taught it wasn't something that we spoke about. Yeah. I mean, how many of you guys, raising your hand at home?
Raise your hand at home. How many of you were taught it wasn't something to talk about at all, right? Conditioning isn't inherently bad. It's information we pick up to survive, to belong, or to stay safe. But at some point, awareness asks us a new question. Does this still fit who I am now? And that's where choice begins. So these first 4 questions are about noticing, not fixing, not judging. So question number 1, what were the earliest messages you received about sexuality, spoken or unspoken? These might have come from what was said, what was asked, what was avoided, what you saw modeled, what was praised or punished.
So for myself, question 1, earliest messages was the more sex you had, the more partners you had, the more of a man I would be. I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and what was out there was the music was talking about sex. Everything, media was talking about sex, and it wasn't as regulated as it is now. And so my association with maturity and adulthood was about sex. There wasn't anything else discussed around about it, and that's how I developed my relationship with sex, was what society and everyone was saying. If you did this, you became a man. And I wanted to be a man fast, because then I wouldn't have to listen to what my parents had to say, right? And that was the math that was going on in my head, and there was no one to speak to about it aside from other kids who were also trying to figure it out, because spaces weren't made to talk about it. Right? And on the same side, I would see women or girls getting shamed for pursuing their own sexual journey. And it was such a double standard, culturally especially. Right? Being Latino, the men, that's what it was. It's like, hey, you have a girlfriend yet? How many girls you got? Things of that nature that were made to feel, I was made to feel less than if I didn't have that type of history, that type of status.
Wow, so different. I came up in the 60s and 70s. I had a bone-crushing experience in the Girl Scouts, where in the bathroom of the Girl Scouts, one of the girls had gotten the 411 and laid it all on us, what sex was. And we were horrified, I'm here to tell you. And there was no one to talk to about it. I went home, and the message I got was like, we're not talking about that. I am of enough of a generation that there was a little bit of sex ed in school, so we did learn a little bit about like the technical birds and the bees in school. I don't even know if they still do that, but they did that when I came up. And that was like, I'm talking about probably, I was like maybe 10 or 11 when that happened. And I was not interested. That did not interest me. And we didn't get any messages about it. That thing that you just said about girls being shamed, that I definitely can relate to, right? And then it wasn't too many years later that I became very interested in things sexually. But the messages that I got were not to talk about it, that there was nowhere to talk about it. And there was nowhere to go to ask questions. And I think I absorbed all of the traditional messages. I was raised in the Catholic Church, and so, I got traditional religious messages about, being, not having sex until you were married, which sounded preposterous to me. And I don't think that was anything I ever took seriously. But those were the kinds of messages that I got. The messages that were out there, that like abstinence was better, and it meant, and girls that were easy or cheap or loose, all those words were used for girls that wanted to be sexual, especially if girls were willing to like put out and not even have to be like in a real relationship. Like they didn't have to have a guy on the hook in order to be able to like, it was very transactional the way it was talked about in terms of who had value and what you were supposed to do, but there was nowhere to go to just talk about it.
Who modeled it for you? Or what you see modeled?
The only things I saw, my mom passed when I was 11, and my dad remarried right away, and he and my stepmother were very much in love, and they were certainly appropriate, but once we were old enough to understand that sex was a thing, it was clear that they had a healthy sex relationship, that they were interested and involved with each other in a loving and committed way. And so that's what that looked like to me. The rest of the role models I had, my aunt she was the mistress of the dentist she worked for, and he was married and wouldn't get divorced, and that's what that looked like. And
how many of you folks know of those relationships?
And then my other aunt couldn't manage to keep a relationship together, and so I didn't have a lot of role models. Most of the girls in school, I think, at one level did that thing where they were like, they needed the boy to commit in order to want to be sexual and stuff like that, in terms of, but you never could be clear about what kids would talk about and what they were really doing. Because kids just talked to say stuff.
I think adults talk to say stuff.
Okay, that's fair.
For myself, modeled was TV. Right, it's like the shows on cable, right, where my parents would try to cover my eyes from watching what was going on, and then it's like I'd see it anyway. Also magazines, like I started collecting adult magazines from very young, and I would hide them in the sides where the drawers would come out. I'd pull the drawer out, and then I'd put the magazines in the side, and then I'll put the drawer back in. My parents ultimately found it.
I was going to say, how long did it take for your mom to figure that out?
Yeah, I had them for a minute. I came back, and then they were gone, and no one spoke about it.
Right? Like the nobody talking about it thing.
Yeah. I wish the conversations could have been more forward.
I wish it didn't feel like it wasn't wrong to talk about it. That's what it felt like.
And
to
it
me.
isn't.
It felt like it was wrong to talk about it.
It's like it's a secret. Like,
right.
It's like, don't let anyone find out.
Right, and like you're wrong if you want to talk it. Like, what's wrong with you that you need to talk about that?
It's crazy. So let's jump on to question 2.
All right.
Who or what most influenced your understanding of what was acceptable or normal? Was it family, religion, school, porn, friends, culture? Influence doesn't mean agreement, it means impact.
Well, I think that we covered some of that. For me, for sure, all of those things actually were an influence. Porn was something I did on, I liked the kind of porn that you read, because my brain is stimulated more by like stories than images. And so I forget the name of it, but there was a book, I don't know when I got a hold of it or started to find it, but whenever I could read anything that was like sexy, racy, I would read. And that
it's easier to hide that way too.
That was different than, because that was very those things were very sex positive, right? Like it was later on, a little later on, I was an early adult when I found like Story of O and stuff like that. Like, but all that stuff was very encouraging to me of the things that I was innately interested in. The messages that I was getting from religion, from family, from friends, from culture, was that part of me was not healthy or normal or okay or good or anything I should be interested in. The part of me that really wanted to be sexual and wanted to be kinky and wanted to do all those things and felt deeply the desire to do that stuff. That didn't look like get a spouse, be monogamous, and I don't even know, like, no one even said what you were supposed to do. Like, people would talk about different things, like guys would talk about it was cool if the girls that would do the different acts, right? That stuff came through school and friends, right? Like, girls that would, I don't know what we're allowed to say on these shows, but, girls that were willing to do things like orally or willing to do things like, those girls were considered cooler.
Yeah.
So you want to answer question 2 then?
So for myself, I think like what you just shared about, they all play a role in what my relationship was, what I determined acceptable and unacceptable. Family was a big part of it because we were spoken to about sex and the responsibilities of it. But we were never really spoken in depth of, well, why? It was like, don't have sex, and if you do, wear a condom.
Oh, that kind of responsibility.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you meant by responsibility.
And it was like, I never understood the consequences because they never laid out the consequences. And it was like, and if you have a kid, right, everyone else around me was, and it wasn't really, it was like, don't be this person, but there was never any talk about the responsibilities of the choice, making the choice of not only the mistakes, or the accidents or the incidences, but the long-term effect of what it means to my relationship with my body and what it means to give that part of myself to other people.
Yeah.
It wasn't something that came to awareness until my 30s.
Nobody talked anything about the relationship between sex and relationships, sex and emotions, sex and what does it mean to connect with another. We never talked about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what does it mean? How do you feel in your own body? How are you feeling about the person you want to be sexual with? And what does it mean to be sexual? And let alone, I mean, still to this day, I feel like there's very few places to go to talk about it when you feel like I do in some ways, that like sex could be kind of recreational, right? Like, where is it okay to be sexual with someone in a consensual way that's just fun, and then it doesn't have to do with like big I love yous and big relationship commitments and whatever. It can just be like there was no place to talk about or to see sex as something healthy that people could just do to enjoy their bodies or enjoy each other, and I never understood that.
Yeah, I mean, like family is one thing. Religion, I put those two together because I think that's the angle that my parents were trying to talk to me about sex, was the responsibility of and children and life and love and stuff. But they never had the message to communicate it. School was, again, I started having sex young, so it was like in school, I was the one who was talking about having the sex, and I would cut class for sex. It was like a clout thing in school. Porn opened my eyes to what could be possible, but even then there wasn't anything. I wasn't watching a lot of kink related stuff. It was vanilla type of sex. But it still was sex, right? And as a teenager, I was like, oh my God, look at all of this. Friends played a role, because who else was I bragging to, right? And I think how much we were bragging to each other, I don't know how much of it was true from everybody else, but I'll tell you what, it made me raise my bar. So I was like, well, fuck, if they're doing this, then I gotta do this and then some. So I would say peer pressure was a motherfucker. And even if it wasn't overt, it was like, this person is doing this, so why can't I be doing this? And how do I do it better? And then culture in it was what was happening around me. The music was influencing it. To be a man, this is what you got to do. And I ate it up.
You mean like song lyrics?
Music, movies, culture, like the culture that people were replicating in school.
It never occurred to me how different that influence can be depending on when you were come up.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was coming up when rap and hip hop was exploding. Yeah. Right, and that's all it was: make money, fuck bitches, and sell drugs, right? And it was like, and fuck people up, right? It was like, that's all it was. And so people wanted to emulate that lifestyle. Yeah. I wasn't listening to the music, but I was influenced by what was happening around me, right? Because if I wanted to fit in, or if I wanted to not be a target of harassment, right? Because the last thing you wanted to be was a virgin. Right, you got no ass.
It's so different.
It's crazy.
It's so different because girls had an opposite message. Like there was a double-edged sword about being a virgin when you were a girl. It was like you wanted to be and you didn't want to be all at the same time. You were supposed to be, and it was cool if you were, and it was not cool if you were all at the same time. Yeah. It was tough.
It makes me think of the body count conversations.
Yeah.
Right, nowadays, why does body count matter? If it does, why does it? If it doesn't, why doesn't it? Yeah. And it's like it's circumstantial, right? It's all dependent on the person.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the next question.
All right. So in what ways do you notice these early messages still shaping your choices today? We're talking about patterns, reactions, comfort levels, especially moments where your body responds before your mind.
So that's something I think I've been having. I was talking about this earlier today. I'm 47. I've been having sex since I was 12. I've been having sex for 35 years, right? And one, it's fucking nuts. But two, I've noticed in the last few months, at the very least, if not the last few years, that I'm still responding to desires that are no longer mine. Meaning the desire to be with someone, like what part of me is responding to that? And it's like teenager me versus adult me, because it's like, oh, I can eat from there too, right? It's like I think it's like a conquer thing.
I can see
right?
that.
And I don't need to be doing that. However, it's like it's not easy, because that's been a part of who I am for 3/4 of my life, right? It's like leaving a flag everywhere I go, and it's
like a moon, like the man on the moon.
Like, because my initial, when sex became it went from a way of sharing love into a weapon. Back when I was a late teenager with my oldest daughter's mom, when we got into this whole family court thing, and things just dissolved really quickly, and it was like I had no power, but I had power over bodies, because if I can be the best sex you'll never forget me, right? And that was like my fuck you, in a way. Like, if this ended, you won't ever forget who I am, because I've ruined sex for you forever. And it's that was some of my earliest intention, like, is to never be forgotten. And this is how I'm going to do it. And I still think it's a pattern. I don't think it's coming from the same negative place, but it's like, it's still, I think it's still somewhere that I operate from subconsciously. It's like, I get to conquer you. And it's tough, because you can't undo that once you do it. And it's harmful, because, like, I'll meet someone who I've never met and will engage, we'll have sex, and I'll just ruin sex for the rest of their life, because my whole intention is to give you such an experience, to a bar so high. It's fucked up, because it takes away what can be had in the future with someone who they care about more. Right? It's like, your tool set doesn't match this person. And I'll always think about this person when I'm having sex with you. And that was like the underhanded purpose behind it, is like, you'll never fucking forget me.
I think there's an Alanis Morissette song that goes something like that. But
it's not something that, so that's why, like, for me, it's about a point of, I want to share something with you, as opposed to I want to take something from you. Because my intention isn't to ruin anything for you. Now my intention is to show you what's possible. Yeah. And it's like, that's a very different...
That's a lot of insight that you just described. I just need to acknowledge. I just need to say, like, that's a lot of... To say that that's what's true for you, and that's where you've come from, and that's what you've done. That's a lot of work that you did to get there. I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you, Mom.
And for you to admit this to God and everybody, that this is how you've been and what's motivated you. And I'm sure there's people out there who are saying, "Oh my God, I can't believe he's putting words to that." Because
I've never
experienced that
like
too.
That.
I've felt that too, and I haven't had the words, or I've been too ashamed to say. So thank you for blazing that trail for people, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna replay this back in about 2 years. I'm gonna be like, yo, what the fuck did you do?
So for me, that question, my early messages don't still shape my choices today. And that's because I can't, let me see if I do the math. I've had sex for more than 35 years. Only because I've been around for longer than that, right? Like, I'm at that point in my life where I can say I've been doing things for 40 and 50 years.
But you're 37.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, honey. And I've done a lot of work to come out from behind any of the early messages, right? Like the stuff we were talking about earlier, this, the stuff that I kind of tripped into adulthood with, and all of my crazy feeling out of control desires and wanting to have sex and having nowhere to go to do it and doing it anyway. And I've worked through a lot of that stuff. And so that the way that I interact now sexually, I do from choice. I do from conscious choice. That's how I want to be today. Probably the only messages that I can think of that still shape my choice is the messages that said that it's important to please your partner. It's important that your partner feels how they want to feel. And that's one of the messages that still guides me today, right? Because I have gone through that period. I am menopausal and, have watched my hard edge desire for sex taper back a little bit. And that's made me want to be conscious of the fact that I want my partners to feel desired. I want my partners to feel the way they want to feel. But I've consciously chosen to keep that that message in terms of how I function.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Another one for myself is the aging body. I was talking about this earlier as well, with my body not responding the way that I want it to respond. Wherever my mind may be, my body's not there. Like, for the tail end of this question, especially the moments when your body responds before your mind. And the opposite of that in this question is, well, what if my body isn't responding to the arousal in my mind? And then what does culture and history say about that? And it comes back to, oh, well, you're not man enough, right? It's like, oh, you must be weak because of, right? So dealing with that on the opposite side is a different game to contend with, of a lot of my value coming from my sex, right? How, if I can't perform sex, then how valuable am I? And that's the opposite end of this question. It's like, when I was young, that was one thing. On the backside of it, it's a whole nother perspective to that question. Where do you feel conflict between what you were taught and what feels true now? This tension is often where growth begins, not because something is wrong, but because something is evolving.
I don't know that I feel conflict between what I was taught and what feels true now. I don't think I feel conflict now. I think I've experienced a lot of conflict over time as I unraveled the difference between what was really true for me and what I was taught. But that's not where I live now. Unraveling the shame around being a woman who wanted to be sexual, being the shame around a woman who wanted to be sexual and not necessarily have to be inside of a monogamous relationship to be sexual. Like, that was all stuff that I had to unravel and get okay with, because I ultimately decided that my desire to be a sexual person was okay. I took the judgment off of it that was given to me that said, oh, that means that you're loose, or you have bad morals, or you're not a good enough person. Like, I decided to put all of that stuff aside because I don't believe it's true. And I did that work. And I embrace who I've been and who I continue to be, right? I like to be sexual, and I like to be kinky, and I like to be all the things that I am, and I think I'm okay that way. I mean, I don't talk to my family about it, but...
Yeah. I had a question come up in my mind today. I think we were talking about it, is when a person says I'm kinky, what are they trying to get across to somebody? But that's a whole other conversation. Where do you feel conflict between what you were taught and what feels true now? It's funny because it's been, I think, full circle from what my parents were trying to teach me about sex, around the importance of self-value, who I'm putting myself with, the risks associated with it, the intention behind it. What they told me, everything in between until now, coming back to, well, I think that level of intimacy is very important to preserve and to keep sacred, because of the vulnerability behind it, the way that I would want a person to feel valued from me, even if it is in the deeper sides of humiliation and degradation. Is like, I don't mean it. And I think that type of intimacy with a person is probably the most I can give somebody of myself, is my desires, my fears and shames around what a person may think about me if I do share it with them. And there's a lot of value in that to me. It's like, there's a lot of value in what I'm willing to share with a person, and I want it to be received versus disregarded or rejected or not seen as valuable simply because it's sex. Because sex to me matters more than it does to the person. If it matters more to me than the person in front of me, do I really want to share it with the person in front of me? Right, so like whenever we've talked about bringing other people in, particularly men, and what does that look like in process, in action, it's like, you're not an object, right? You're a person. And for me to watch someone degrade or dehumanize without knowing the value of who you are before it would be a conflict for me, because it's like, well, we're not just that. And I don't want you to be treated that way, because that may be exactly how they feel. And it's like, then that's not going to happen, right? So the conflict is, I'm a kinky fuck, but there's a lot of respect that has to happen. There's a lot of presence that has to be there too. It's not just we come, we do, and we go. It's like there needs to be an underlying level of respect and trust and mindfulness that I think my parents were trying to teach me in the beginning, that didn't really translate over that well. But then on this side of it, it's like I see it. And moving forward with that awareness, I want to make sure that whoever I'm with feels valued, feels valuable, feels seen, feels important, feels beautiful, and knows that they're being respected too. So that's like,
wow.
That's the conflict of living this crazy life that we live. Is, I love doing kinky shit, and I also want to make sure that the respect stays there. So here's a listening pro tip. If you're listening with a partner, resist the urge to compare answers. Sit with it, journal separately perhaps, because you'll be surprised how different your answers could be, or how similar. But give yourself that space to process it for yourself. Yeah.
It's about your relationship with sexuality, not whether or not it's right or getting the right answer.
Yeah.
So these first 4 questions, awareness is powerful, right? But it's only the first step. So the next 4 questions are going to invite us into deeper introspection. How conditioning turns into rules, and how rules quietly shape our sense of safety. So question number 5.
Actually, before we jump into the questions, what we would share with you guys, if we didn't say it already, is for each question, just take a few minutes, answer each question, and then come back and answer them again in another day or 2 so you can flesh them out. So you don't spend so much time trying to unpack this stuff. This is generally where we would take our break, come into the main room again on our Conscious Conversations, and we reshuffle who's in our breakout rooms with us.
Yeah. The Conscious Conversations that we have on Tuesday nights.
Yes.
So you're watching this podcast now, and we invite you to join us on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern for Conscious Conversations, where we're actually going to answer these questions live in real time with each other in breakout rooms. So you'll have an opportunity to have these discussions like we're having now. You'll have in real time with real people who are also answering these questions for themselves. So
and it's a fucking awesome time.
Yeah. All right.
5. What rules about desire or expression do you follow without questioning? These often sound like I should, or people don't like, or that's too much.
It's interesting because I was reflecting on this question a little bit earlier today, and I think one of the "that's too much" line prompted me to think about in my earliest elementary school days, I was attracted to girls. And I didn't understand it, and I didn't know anything about it. And the message that I got back across the board was that I was too much. I had in 4th grade, I had a crush. 5th grade, I had a different crush. And I have a vivid memory of that girl getting permission to take me outside in the hallway so that she could basically tell me that I was too much. And I wasn't even, I can't tell you that I knew that it was a crush. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I really liked them. A lot. So I got those messages, and I think I still feel this way when I get a crush on a girl. I still have this feeling to this day. It's like a young feeling. So my rules about desire were conflicted. The pathway for boys was easier because that's the pathway. If you're a female-bodied person, society carves out a much easier road for you to want to interact with the opposite sex than to interact with the same sex. And so most of the rest of the rules that I follow without question were the rules that I developed from a lot of questioning. I don't have a lot of old rules that I'm still running on.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's been a long time.
What rules about desire or expression do you follow without questioning? I think a lot of it comes into orchestrating, like leading. What rules about desire or expression do you follow without questioning? Like, I want things, so I make them happen. And sometimes I don't want to have to be the one doing that. Sometimes I want to be the one following. But my autopilot goes into directing or leading. And for me, it's like, well, if I don't say it, it won't happen. If I don't do it, it won't happen. Or it moves this direction, and I really want it this direction. So I think that's probably one of the main ways. What rules about desire or expression do you follow without questioning? Yeah, I think that'd probably be my answer for this question, is stepping into the leadership role of it, the dominating the scene or orchestrating the scene. Yeah. That would be my answer for that.
All right. So question number 6. Which of those rules feels protective and which feel limiting? Some rules once kept us safe, others quietly shrink us. Both deserve honesty. Yeah, the one that says that I'm too much kept me safe and shrunk me all at the same time, right? It's why I have had the majority of my relationships have been with men, I think, in my life, and not with women, because I'm too much for women. Right? That's the rule. That's the message, and it's protective and limiting all at the same time.
Yeah. So I think for myself about the leading is if I think it's limiting. It's limiting to me being able to experience other people's interpretations of my desires. It's limiting it limits me as far as my mind can think, right? Because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah, but you're pretty imaginative.
Bottoming, my rule around my relationship and rules around bottoming also, I think, was limiting for me. It didn't allow me to show up for my deeper desires, and it was, I guess, a way to keep me safe. One, from getting hurt physically, because I wasn't comfortable releasing my body to someone else, but also the shame. Shame kept me from really reaching out and filling out my deeper desiring self. So it quietly shrunk parts of me, when the rule was, if a person's not going to do it right, I can't let them do it. And right being the way I do it, right? So there were a lot of safety mechanisms in myself that prevent me from being in scenarios where, oh, you're not doing it right, versus receiving how you desire to show me.
Right, and giving someone the opportunity to learn or get better.
Yeah.
All right, so question 7. What fears arise when you imagine choosing your relationship with sexuality more consciously? Fear of rejection, fear of being seen, fear of wanting too much or not enough?
That's a harder one for me to answer more recently, because I am more comfortable speaking about it. But it's taking me finding people who I can be comfortable to talk about it with, and to be patient in letting a person learn it as well. However, with that, it is too much for a lot of people, because sometimes it absorbs a person, and they get caught up in my they get so caught up in what we're sharing, they think it's something more than what it could be, than what it is, right? Like, if I could be as friendly and casual, not casual as in transient, but casual as in being able to be playful or intimate or sexual with somebody, for them not to take it as, then he must love me. It's like
committed relationship.
Like committed relationship, love me, right? It's like, well, we're sharing this together. And I'm sharing with you because I care about you. I mean, I love you to whatever degree that our relationship is, but it's not a romantic relationship. And it's a way that I express love, I express care for my partners. It doesn't mean that you are a partner.
I really think that there's a big piece around knowing if you're the kind of person for whom, and I use the term recreational just because I think it covers it the easiest. Like, I enjoy sex in what I consider to be a recreational way. If I like you and I think you're fun and we're compatible sexually, I can have sex with you and not need to be in a romantic relationship with you. I'm okay with that. But not everybody's wired that way. And I think it's really important to know how you're wired and to know what's real for you and to know what matters for you, and then to be able to shamelessly claim that. If you're the kind of person that needs to have that kind of connection in order to be sexual, then I want to say, then don't do it unless you have it. Like, do it the way you want to do it and be okay with the fact that that's how you are. As long as it's coming from a genuine place, and as long as it's not, you think that's how you're supposed to be. Right? That's what this whole line of questioning is geared towards getting us to who are we really, rather than who have we been told we're supposed to be, right? A lot of women, at least the women my age who came up the way I came up, were taught to believe that you should want to be monogamous. You should want to be somebody's one and only. You should want to be the most important, the only sexual object of another person's attention. If you have value, if things are right, etc. And that's not the only way that there is to be in the world, right? But it's hard to want to extract yourself from, it was hard for me to extract myself from what the messages that I received along that line from who I really felt like I was on the inside and wanted to be okay with. I wanted to be okay with the fact that I'm sexually what they consider promiscuous. That's the word, right, that we use then. Like, I like to be sexual with friends. I like to do it. I enjoy it. I always have. And it took me a long time to stand in my truth and say, I own that, and I'm okay with it. And nobody gets to make me feel bad about that anymore. Not society, not family, not church, not anybody. And at the same time, I encourage everyone to know where they stand for themselves, and that where I stand isn't where you stand. And everyone should, I've always believed that if we could just own who we really are, there's someone out there for everyone, right? Like, you don't have to be afraid of never being with anyone because you think you're so different, because you're not so different. None of us are that different. We just need to own who we really are. All right. Sorry, I feel like I got on a soapbox.
No, I love it, Mama, because it makes me think of, like, I'm a consent forward person. What I mean by that, I realize, very fucking recent, is, let's say we meet Friday and we play and it's like, oh my God, that was great. And then in a few days, we see each other again. I'm going to need permissions again in order to engage with you. A lot of people don't operate that way. And that's like a sticking point for me, is like, especially what I've seen with a lot of guys is, if I were to see them again a few days later, they become all touchy and feely again, like the consent, the agreement carries over. And that's my issue around poly arrangement sometimes, is what's the motive of the person coming into the space, particularly the men? What's the agenda, right? It's like, what are they willing to look past in order to maintain that sexual relation? Like it automatically gives permissions to people, and like there's no, the boundaries aren't in place. So choosing my relationship with sexuality more consciously is to make aware that other people aren't operating the same way. And maybe it's not me, maybe it's you and your behavior coming into this space that I'm not comfortable with. So question 8, what kind of safety or support would help you make different choices? This might be internal self-trust and compassion, or external community, language, permission. You're not being asked to change everything, just to notice what choice might look like.
I think that I've just had to choose people who see things the way that I do, right? I mean, I one of the things I've always said, and I believe I'm right, that, you know, we have that thing in common about the recreational piece, like and yet we have a relationship. But I know that, I guess externally I've needed people who understand me. I've needed to be around like-minded people in order to have permission to be myself. Because unless I'm just having sex with myself, it's an activity that involves other people. And so those other people have needed to be like-minded in order for me to feel like I can be more of who I really am. And so that's involved choices over time. You know, leaving some relationships when they don't work anymore and being willing to engage with new people who are closer to my way of thinking and my way of wanting to experience being sexual.
What comes to mind is, don't make my toys your priority, right? And what I mean by that is, like, let's say, like, we meet a cool guy and it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh, I want to fuck, as opposed to, we're here hanging out. Right, it's like, don't make the sex the priority of your presence. And I think that's a truth for me around what does safety look like in making different choices, right? Is having a person aware, and it comes back to the people before kink, right? It's like, make our connection the priority, and the play will be a byproduct. It'll be a byproduct because it's like, cool, you're cool as fuck, man. Yes, you can come fuck, unless you're here to take all the fucking candy. And it's like, you didn't even bring a bag of candy, dude. Like, what are you bringing? You're not even bringing money. Not that, right? It's like, yeah, at least pay my phone bill. That's not true. Maybe a little bit, but it's like, what are you bringing to the party that isn't solely for your wants and or your needs?
Yeah.
And I think that's how I would answer this question. So let's do a recap of this week's questions. And again, answer each question, give yourself a few minutes, and then give a day or two before coming back and fleshing them out. So this week is about sexuality, conditioning versus choice. And the set 1 questions: awareness and orientation. What were your earliest messages you received about sexuality, spoken or unspoken? Who or what influenced your understanding of what acceptable or normal is? And in what ways do you notice those messages still shaping your choices today? Where do you feel conflict between what you were taught and what feels true now?
Second set of questions, the deeper introspection questions, were: what rules about desire or expression do you follow without questioning? Which of those rules feels protective and which feel limiting? What fears arise when you imagine choosing your relationship with sexuality more consciously? And then what kind of safety or support would help you make different choices?
That was a good set of questions.
Yeah. All right, so sexuality isn't something to master, it's something to relate to. And relationship always begins with awareness. relationship with sexuality, that is, not even relationship with other people, just relationship with sexuality and yourself, it always begins with awareness. So if these questions stirred something up in you, curiosity, discomfort, relief, it's information, it's not a problem.
Thank you, Mama. These same questions will be brought into Conscious Conversations, our live community space where we slow this process down and explore together in group on Zoom. It's pretty incredible. A Conscious Conversation meets every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and is open to anyone who's curious, reflective, and willing to engage honestly. There's no experience required at all. You don't have to have these answers right now. What we would encourage is you just need a willingness to listen to yourself and to others.
So until next time, remember, this isn't about doing sexuality better. It's about relating more consciously. We'll see you in the conversation.
Thanks for listening to the Conscious Kinky Podcast. New episodes drop every Friday, and the conversation continues inside Conscious Conversations each Tuesday night. See you there.
See you then.